So it's been about 3-ish months since the last Tuesday Talk episode I did, and it's been like an over a year, like a year and a week-ish since I did my last Lord of the Rings video, which, if you're new on my channel, because I know I have gotten a bunch more subs since last year. Basically, for the past 3 years, I have been talking about each one of the Lord of the Rings books, movies, as the movies have hit their 20th anniversary. And next year, I could talk about The Hobbit. I think it turns like 10 years old, or it did turn 10 years old like this year. The Hobbit movies are also coming out and reaching like their 10th year anniversary sometime soon. So I would love to talk about that, but we're here right now to talk about the last Lord of the Rings book, Return of the King, which was a nightmare this year. I know I've mentioned previously, in I believe both my first and my second video, on these books, that Lord of the Rings is like the first series that I really got into, but Return of the King is the first movie I ever saw in a theater. I was very little, and I do not remember it, but I just know that it was the first movie I ever saw, technically. So yeah, it feels kind of fun and special to be talking about it now. And when I tell you this video really sucked to put together, it really did suck. From just the process of listening to the soundscape, which I will recommend the soundscape every time. It's so great. But from listening to the soundscape to trying to get this done at a reasonable time, too many behind the scenes issues going on. So yeah, it took me a long time to get through the book, even though I started it. I started reading the entire series again, like middle of November. And I struggled very, very hard to find what scene I wanted to draw from Return of the King, because there's a lot of really good scenes to pick from. I thought about the Grey Havens at the end. I thought about just any part of like Aragorn getting named crowned king, maybe him with the dead, but then last year's video was about Aragorn, and I was like, I can't do that. I thought maybe one of my favorite scenes in the book, which is when Denethor basically commits suicide, kills himself by like burning on fire, which is fun. Yeah, I've talked about what's different from the book and the movie, and obviously I'm talking about this very broadly and without like a list or anything in front, of course unscripted. But yeah, that's one of the things that is different. Like I do like the performance of the actor who plays him, John Noble, but gosh dang, does his death go hard in the book. So much better in the book, honestly. And I like the fact that it doesn't seem almost like an accident, because I haven't watched the movies in a while, because I did not watch them for this video. I was busy watching another series, and I remember him just kind of running off out of like what seems like fear, but in the book he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go send myself to a fiery grave just because. Um, so yeah, I wanted to pick a scene that I felt was like gonna be cool to draw, but also something that was kind of my favorite. And when looking at old sketches that I had done for my first video, the one about Boromir, in Fellowship of the Ring, I had this old sketch of Faramir lying around because if you remember, and probably don't, in my first video, I basically talked about how I had this idea of the dream that Faramir describes in the second book that he has, where he comes across his brother in the boat as he's dying, and I thought that I would draw that as a part of like Boromir's death, but I ended up not doing that, and yet I still had these like really good sketches of Faramir just kind of left behind in this, image folder, kind of collecting dust, if you will. So I tried to find a Faramir scene to draw and committed myself to drawing a scene that took way too long to find. I basically skimmed through Return of the King before I started the drawing process. I found a copy online, and I just hovered over, and then every time I saw a scene that I thought it could have been the one I was looking for, I stopped and I maybe watched a little bit, and I just kept missing it until I sat through and watched a good 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, finally found the scene. And it's a scene at almost exactly 2 hours into the movie where the armies of Sauron are coming to Gondor, but what's leading them at the head is a single horse that's pulling Faramir, who is hanging on by his foot being stuck in the stirrup. And I was like, that. I want to draw that. Which, first of all, I don't draw horses. The last horse I drew was, I can probably put up a sketch. Okay, so I should have put the last drawing on screen. Anyways, yeah, I don't draw horses. I also don't draw people falling or in awkward positions like this. And you know what's even harder? Finding a reference for that. When I tell you that I spent several hours just looking up people falling off horses, it was a wild time. I ended up finding a reference from someone who was doing a Cirque du Soleil performance, which is just acrobats, for those who aren't familiar. And yeah, I basically found that it was a fun time, let me tell you that. So yeah, as much as I love this book and these characters and all of this, I am not going to be picking this up for a good couple of months. My gosh, this drawing has really destroyed my love of Lord of the Rings for right now. And I don't talk about it much anyways, because it's it's just a series I view very intimately, and that's about it. But yeah, let's talk about the book and the movie and things. One thing I really like about the book is the fact that in its Return of the King specifically, because they don't exactly do this in the other two, because obviously everyone is kind of in together in the first book, and then split up a little bit in the second book, but obviously, like, in their own categories, if you will. But the issue is that you have, like, everyone separated, different moving parts, and that leads to this very specific, I don't want to call it issue, but it's keeping track of, like, the timeline, because it will start, we'll hear about, like, Frodo and Sam doing something, and then we'll see, like, oh, Merry's doing something, and then Pippin's doing something, and then we have to, like, flash back in time, or we're gonna have a whole, like, I think there's one whole chapter in which it's like, oh, Pippin's doing his stuff, and then it's like, 2 days ago, Merry was doing this other thing, and it's like, it's great, I like it, it's a lot to deal with, and it is both good and bad. I think because it takes place over such, like a short time. It's like a few days, like a week or two. The whole Battle of Gondor, specifically that, like, section of the book, which is like the first. I mean, that's most of the chapters of the first, except for like Sam and Frodo stuff. But I like hearing about that, because it's like we're jumping back, but it's just like we're learning what everyone's doing in this, like, 2-day time period. And then I like Sam being alone in Mordor. I think that's fun. It's great. Sam is one of my favorite characters. He is up there as a favorite. I think it's specifically just, like, how he is, where he's just the bravest hobbit ever, and yeah, he's a little bit aggressive and probably more violent, but he definitely, like, takes charge and doesn't exactly feel the ring's influence, except maybe possibly towards being more violent, because, like, Sam will defend himself, but seems a little bit more like a lover than a fighter, if you catch my drift. And I just feel like the ring kind of influenced him to be more fighter, more courageous. Where to Frodo, it kind of just dragged him down, and was, because I feel like Frodo's very philosophical, and so the ring had a lot of mental battles to him, or for him, and Gollum was someone who was alone a lot, so the ring kind of fractured him, and funnily enough gave him this like, second identity, for him to rely on, but also to ruin him. So, yeah, I'm honestly, I think my favorite book character, and movie, but mostly book, because I feel like there's just more content, is going to be Faramir. I do really like Faramir, which is funny because the actor, I forgot his name and I'm not going to look it up in the middle of this, played a character on another show I was watching that I really enjoyed, and I did not realize it was the same guy until later. I also didn't realize that Éomer was played by Carl Urban until, like, I was looking it up, or I was, like, seeing the credits scroll by or something, and I was like, really, it's Carl Urban? I totally forgot it was. Yeah. I am bad at remembering, like, names and faces, which I will talk about a funny bit for that when we get to Hobbit, because there's a couple people in The Hobbit that I've seen in other things that I was like, oh, I did not realize which will be fun to talk about. But yeah, there's not a lot to say about Return of the King that I think hasn't. I'm not like here to be like groundbreaking theories or like ooh. It's an emotional book. It's there's a lot of things I do like about it. There's a lot of things that really suck. The green men, the like wild men who live in the woods and have their own like territory, and then they like they meet with Theoden and they're like, oh, we'll lead you to Gondor or whatever. And then at the end, Aragorn is like, you can have your land. It's like, dude, they were already there. It's so silly to me. I get the reason why he's doing that, because he's like, I will keep people from trespassing there, and you can keep it all your own. But it's like, that's their land, my guy. They were there first. It really feels like Aragorn just goes around to all of the like indigenous people when he first becomes king, and he's like, you guys can keep your things, and they're like, thanks, I guess, like we were already here first. Yeah, it's a little silly, and what I also find really silly is that whole, it's like the chapter like before the scourging of the Shire, like before they go back to the Shire, where they're talking with Butterbur, and he's like, wait, the king knows about my beer? The king likes my beer? And it's like, dude, did they not walk up, did Aragorn not like do anything? Is he not gonna send like messengers down here to do things in Bree? I feel like he would need to get on that. Also, you're telling me he just sent his Hobbit friends home with no like symbol of the king so that they could pass safely? I mean, I don't know. I probably would, but you know, I'm not king of Gondor. I'm not making these decisions. Yeah, let's see. Other fun stuff from this book. Hold on, I gotta pause for a second. Alright, I'm back. I had to take care of something real quick. Let's talk about another character that I think is really cool in this book, and that is Arwen, right? That's the right name? Eowyn. Arwen and Eowyn. I will talk about them both, because Arwen gets so much screen time in these movies. I don't care how much they do or don't take from Glorfindel, I think is who they take that initial scene from. I don't care. I think her riding out to check on her boyfriend it is funny, and that it should be kept in the movie. And in the book, where she basically gives Frodo the necklace and is like, you should take my spot in the afterlife. I love that. It's one of my favorite parts of her character is, and it's not something we see in the movie, but it's definitely my favorite scene of her in the book. And just favorite scene in general is just her giving up her spot to Frodo, because I think it's not just a personal sacrifice of like her giving up like her potential and really like sealing the deal that no, she is gonna die as a mortal person, but it's a nice thing for Frodo, who probably is used to not having like nice thing. I mean, it's not that I don't think he has like nice things, it's that I'm sure a lot of magical objects or dealings with like the elves, for him particularly, became this like grandiose situation. Not that like his vial of Gladriel or whatever wasn't great, but the fact that someone saw kindness but didn't like expect anything in return. I don't know. It's just a scene I really like. But Eowyn can talk about that. She is the girl boss of the century. I like her character, and I also really, really don't. I'm quite torn because there's a lot of things that I really enjoy. Like when this book came out, which was like the 40s, I think, having a strong female character who wanted to do battle, excellent. The fact that she wanted to do battle to kill herself, not great. Mental health, go to therapy. I would love to see her get some therapy, and her only therapy is like staying in the house of a healer and then like kissing Faramir, which is fine, I guess. They clearly didn't know what therapy was at the time. So, yeah, she's great in that regard. I do love her character, but I will say that, like, she does get this almost short end of the stick in her ending, where it's like, yeah, she wanted to die. Can we talk about that? Can we address the fact that she was dealing with this, and the only person that seemed to pay attention was Faramir, which is great, but that kind of ended in this, her not doing battle or going to war or finding, the part that frustrates me is that this arc, in and of itself, I think is great. From a warrior realizing that they want to be a healer instead, or even the vice versa of a healer becoming a warrior in time of need. I love it. I will forever enjoy those plot lines. However, it happens in such a short time. We do not get to see a lot of her inner turmoil about this. In fact, this is a complaint I do have a lot, specifically about the ending of Return of the King. We see so much happen, that we just are kind of flashing through characters and scenes, and we don't actually get to really, it feels like, linger on any of these characters or the things that they're going through, or, you know, any of these more intimate details. And I'm not necessarily mad at the fact that we get to spend a lot of more time focusing on, like, Sam and Frodo, which is where I think we should be focusing a lot more of those interpersonal conflicts. But it's when you're trying to convince me of these other things, like the fact that her depression goes away super quickly, and it's like, Eowyn is great, and I would love for her to become a healer and find that purpose. I'm just not sure it was done well, and it certainly wouldn't hold up in, like, today's standards. But yeah, I will always like the whole scene of her killing the Witch King. I like that Mary helps. It just kind of shows that he couldn't be taken down by men, sure, woman, yeah. Hobbit, who is definitely not a man. Great, love it. He was attacked and killed by both. Not man as in gender, and not man as in human, which is really great. I know there's some memes out there about being like, oh, when I said not man, I meant like not human, and it's like, okay, but Mary also like bodied him. Mary also did a number on him, so they had the not man covered, and yeah, that's is something that is like a scene that I've always really enjoyed. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, okay. The scene where Aragorn gets like all the spirits and the ghosts and whatever is also a scene that I think is fun in the movies, but in the books it's basically him hanging out with his old like friends. It feels like when your high school friends meet your adult friends, of him hanging out with like the three friends. I forgot. I think they just call themselves the three friends, and then like all of the rangers. I think that's really fun. I love when the worlds collide. And I just kind of think of it as like him hanging out with his other friends. Yeah. A lot of time has passed in this video, so let's actually talk about the art. This piece took forever, and if you notice, there's a lot of like skips in the art. That's because I was watching TV in the middle of doing this, and I got too distracted by the TV and kept stopping. I kept stopping to watch. I was watching Castlevania at the time, which was really fun, and I just kept stopping to watch it. And yeah, so I played around a lot, which made some of the editing for like background details more difficult, because I was playing with specific layers and using different types of layer types, like how they would appear, so turning them to like the shading to multiply, or overlay, or soft or hard light for the lighting, and that's why if you will see, it takes a lot more time for the image to load, because we usually condense a lot of these frames and layers to avoid that situation, but yeah, not this time, I guess. Yeah, I think all in all it turned out pretty good. I did go in and add some blur effect to the mountains afterwards and make the snow less the way it is. I added some like blur to make it look less just the way it looks. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. And yeah, I really like this picture, even though it feels very full, if you catch my drift. Like when thinking about my last two pieces of for Lord of the Rings, they feel very dull and kind of lifeless, where this feels like it's actually, we're in the middle of a scene. I feel like there's movement. I feel like we're actually having some dynamic lighting. You'll notice that it's very gray in the shading, and that's because basically during this time in the books, everything is gray. The sky has gone gray. Everything is super dark and disappointing and like sad and dangerous, and I wanted to highlight that because it's really great, fun to work with. So yeah, that's basically Return of the King and this drawing. I'll probably do Hobbit next year, which that's only one book to read, which is great. Controversial opinion, I actually like those movies. I know. most people like really hate them. Yeah, thanks for watching. Back to usual business next week.